$49, the $4 dry, trick that dehumidifies any room forever. No power needed. There's a corner in your house that never feels right. You know the one. The wall behind the headboard in the back bedroom, the bottom step of the cellar stairs, the closet under the staircase where the winter coats live. You can walk past it 100 times and not think about it until one quiet morning you lay your hand flat against the drywall and it comes away cool, not wet, just wrong. There's a faint smell in there too, the kind you can't quite name. Not dirt, not mildew, not yet. Something older, something patient. That smell isn't dirt, it's water, and it's been winning. For about $4, sitting quiet in a bucket in that corner, there's something the old folks used to keep a he house dry before there was a plug in the wall. No motor, no filter, no monthly bill. And if you know the one small trick most people don't, it never has to be thrown out. Before we go any further, if your kitchen table is the kind where folks still trust a bucket more than a brochure, pull up a chair. This place is for the ones who'd rather fix a thing once than rent the fix forever. Hit that subscribe if it sounds like your people. And down in the comments, before you forget, tell me which room in your house is the damp one, the cellar, the back bedroom, the mudroom by the boots. I read them. I want you to picture that corner again, because the body knows what the mind ignores. Maybe it's a basement in Ohio with a painted block wall the color of old eggshell. Maybe it's a 1962 ranch in Tennessee where the north bedroom always feels 2 degrees colder than the rest of the house. Maybe it's a fishing cabin you only see 4 weekends a year, and every spring the door swells so bad you have to shoulder it open. Different houses, same trouble. The air in there is heavier than the air in the kitchen. You can feel it land on your skin when you walk in. Most folks blame the house. They say the cellar's just old, the bedroom's just drafty, the cabin's just neglected. But the house isn't the problem. The air is. Warm air carries water the way a sponge carries dishwater, and every time that warm air drifts into a cool room, it sets the water down on the first cold thing it touches, the window glass, the metal of a tool, the plaster behind a piece of furniture you haven't moved since the kids were small. That's where the trouble begins. Quiet, steady, working while you sleep. And it does work. While you're snoring under a quilt, the water is unbuilding your house one fiber at a time. Pine trim swells and shrinks and swells again until the paint cracks. Drawer fronts stop closing square. The bottom inch of the baseboard in the laundry room turns a shade darker than the rest, and you tell yourself you'll get to it. Under the windowsill, that little speckle of black appears, no bigger than a dime, and you wipe it with bleach and forget about it. 6 months later, it's the size of a quarter. Slow rot is the patientest thief there is. There's a cost to your body, too, and this is the part nobody talks about until February. The cough that won't quite leave. The sinuses that feel packed in cotton every morning. The way the back bedroom seems to make a head cold last an extra week. I'm not a doctor and I won't pretend to be one. But many folks who've lived in damp houses will tell you, plain as daylight, that something about a dry room sleeps better than a wet one. Tradition holds it, their lungs hold it. The body keeps a ledger, the bill doesn't show. Now I'll tell myself, 'cause I owe you that before I tell you anything else. For 3 winters running, I had a plug-in dehumidifier squatting in the corner of my cellar. White plastic, a little blue light, hummed like a tired refrigerator. I emptied that bucket more times than I can count, sometimes at 2 in the morning because the float switch tripped and shut it down. I watched the meter on the side of my house spin a little faster every month that thing ran, and here's the part that finally broke me. By Thursday, the damp was back, every time. I'd come down on a Thursday evening to switch the laundry, and there it would be. The same heaviness in the air, the same cool kiss on the painted block. The machine was running, the light was on, the bucket was filling, and the room wasn't actually dry. It was being dried hour by hour like a leaky boat being bailed by a tired man. The minute I unplugged it, the water came back in. I was renting dryness. I was paying the power company to bail my cellar. That's when I started asking the older men at the feed store what they did before there were plug-in machines in every aisle. And one of them, a thin man in his 80s who'd kept a smokehouse and a root cellar his whole life, told me something I want to tell you in a minute. He said the trick wasn't drying the room. The trick was teaching the room to dry itself the way a good wool sock dries a wet boot. And the whole rig, he said, cost him less than a cup of coffee at the diner up the road. He had one in every problem corner of his house. He'd had them for 30 years. Before I tell you what sits in that bucket, You need to understand why the machine in the corner was never going to fix this. Because once you see what the appliance aisle is really selling you, you can't unsee it. And you'll know the next time you pass that white plastic box at the big box store exactly what it is and exactly what it isn't. Here's the plain math, and I'll keep it honest because I don't know your house and I don't know your power company. A mid-size electric dehumidifier pulls roughly the kind of current a small refrigerator pulls, and it runs most of the humid season, day and night, in the rooms that need it most. Many homeowners I've talked to say they notice it on the summer bill. Some say a little, some say a lot. The point isn't the exact number. The point is that you bought a machine and now you're also buying the electricity to feed it every hour for as long as you own the house. Then the machine breaks. They almost all break. The compressor gives up around year 5 or 6, or the fan bearing starts to scream, or the float switch quits and the bucket overflows onto the floor one Tuesday while you're at work. You haul it to the curb, you drive back to the same aisle and buy the same kind of box, maybe a newer model with a digital readout this time, and you plug it in and the meter starts spinning again. That is not a fix. That is a subscription with a cord on it. Buy, run, break, repurchase. The cycle has a rhythm to it, and the rhythm pays somebody who is not you. I'm not angry at the people who build those machines. There are good engineers in those plants, and they do honest work. I'm pointing at the shape of the thing. The whole appliance economy is built on the quiet idea that every household trouble needs a plug, a motor, a circuit board, and a replacement 7 years down the road. That shape works fine for the company holding the patent. It doesn't work as well for a man on a fixed income who just wants the back bedroom to stop smelling like a wet dog every August. And here's the second cost almost nobody names out loud. That white plastic box doesn't fix the room. It only catches what's already in the air. The minute the compressor shuts off, the air in that cellar starts refilling with moisture from the soil under the slab, from the warm air sneaking in around the cellar door, from the wet earth pressed against the foundation wall. You are not drying a room. You are bailing it. And the second you stop bailing, the boat starts filling again. That is what I mean when I say you're renting dryness by the hour. Now turn the clock back. Long before there was a plug in the wall, people in damp places kept their things dry, and they did it on purpose, and they did it cheap. Sea captains hauling sugar and tea across the Atlantic kept small cloth sacks of a certain crystal tucked into the corners of their wooden chests. The salt and the sugar came off the boat dry enough to sell. Country store keepers in the river towns kept the same kind of sack in the salt barrel, because damp salt won't pour and a storekeeper who can't pour his salt can't sell it. My own grandmother kept a little muslin bag in the flour bin and another inside the piano bench, and that piano stayed in tune in a Pennsylvania farmhouse for 40 years. The thing in those bags has been around for more than 100 years. It's used in shipping containers, it's used in pill bottles, it's used inside the leather of a new pair of boots. It's used by gunsmiths and museum curators and beekeepers and the people who pack ammunition for the military. You have almost certainly walked past it in a hardware store or a feed store and never thought twice about it because the bag it comes in is plain and the price is so low it doesn't look serious. That's the camouflage. Cheap things hide in plain sight. Now let me be honest with you the way I'd want a man to be honest with me, because I don't want you mad at me 3 weekends from now. This is not a magic trick. If you have standing water on your cellar floor, you have a foundation problem, and no bucket on God's green earth is going to argue with a cracked footing. Fix the leak first. If your gutters are dumping rain straight against the house, fix the gutters first. If your dryer vent runs into the crawl space instead of out through the wall, fix that today before anything else. This method is for the slow, ordinary damp of an ordinary house, not for a flood. There are really only 2 materials in the whole catalog of cheap things that drink water out of the air well enough to matter in a room the size of a back bedroom. One of them is sold by the bag at every hardware store in winter, because most people only know it for one job, and that one job is the reason you've already walked past it a dozen times. It is also the reason this works, the reason the old-timers had a bucket of it in every problem corner, and the reason your grandmother's piano bench never went soft. Let me show you what it is, and then let me show you the small trick that turns $4 into 4 years. The item is calcium chloride. That's it. The same white pellet sold by the bag every winter as ice melt for sidewalks and porch steps. The same crystals sold in little plastic tubs at the hardware store under a dozen brand names as a closet moisture absorber. Only the tubs charge you $10 for what amounts to a handful. Walk past the tub. Go to the aisle where the snow shovels live in January, or the feed store where they keep it year round, and buy a small bag of plain calcium chloride pellets. A few dollars worth, in most parts of the country, is enough to dry a problem room. There is also a gentler cousin called silica gel, the little beads sold by the pound at craft shops and gun shops, and I'll come back to it in a minute, because for some rooms it's the better choice. Now the rig. You don't need a workshop, you don't need a drill press, you need a 5-gallon bucket from the paint aisle, a smaller bucket or a plastic colander that nests inside the rim of the big one, and a nail or a screwdriver to punch a dozen holes through the bottom of the smaller one. Pour a couple of pounds of pellets into the top bucket. Set it down inside the bottom bucket. Put the whole thing in the corner of the room and walk away. That's the build. No fan, no filter, no power cord. It sits there like a quiet old dog and does its work while you do yours. Now the mechanism, because you deserve to know why before you trust it. These crystals are thirsty by their nature. They pull moisture straight out of the air the way table salt pulls water out of a slice of cucumber on the kitchen counter. Within a day or two, you'll see the top pellets start to glisten. Within a week or so, depending on how wet your room is, they begin to slump and dissolve into a clear brine that drips through the holes you punched and pools in the bottom bucket. Many homesteaders find that one rig in a problem corner catches a surprising amount of water over a season. You'll know it's working the first time you lift the lid and find an inch of liquid where there was none before. Here's the trick almost nobody tells you, the one that turns a one-time purchase into a years-long fix. Most folks throw the brine out and buy more pellets. Don't. Pours the brine off carefully into a jug, keep it labeled. Keep it away from bare metal and bare hands. Then take the damp crystals that are left, spread them on an old cookie sheet you've retired from the kitchen, and set the oven low, somewhere around 250 degrees, with the door cracked an inch. A couple of hours later, they come out dry, white, and ready to go back into the bucket. Silica gel beads are even kinder to do this with. Same oven, slightly lower heat, no brine, no fuss. Done patient and done right. A few dollars of material can be revived season after season for years. Now I'll say something plain. If your kitchen table is the kind where folks still trust a bucket more than a broche, this is the channel for you. We talk about the old answers, the ones that don't need an app. If that sounds like home, stay with me. I'll keep doing the digging if you keep pulling up a chair. Placement matters more than people think, so let me walk you through it the way I'd walk through your house if you handed me the keys. Start with the worst corner of the basement, the one closest to the foundation wall that feels coolest to the hand. One bucket there. Next, the closet under the stairs where the winter coats hang and the air never moves. A quart jar of pellets on the top shelf, lid off, is plenty for that little space. Then the back bedroom with the north wall, a small bucket behind the dresser. Then the garage. Then the gun safe, the toolbox, the tackle box, anywhere rust eats quiet. A handful of silica gel and a sock will save $100 of steel every winter. One more honest word, because I'm not in the business of getting your dog sick. Calcium chloride brine is corrosive. It will eat the finish off a tool. It will sting bare skin. It is not friendly to a curious cat or a Labrador who drinks out of anything that holds water. Keep the catch bucket lid between checks. Label it in big letters so nobody in the family mistakes it for something else. Keep it up off the floor in any room where grandkids roam. And in living spaces where animals or small children spend real time, lean towards silica gel instead. It's the gentler of the two, and for a bedroom or a closet, it does the job just as well. 3 weeks after I set my first bucket in the corner of that cellar, I went down to switch the laundry on a Thursday evening, and I stopped at the bottom of the stairs and just stood there. The air felt different, not cold, not warm, just honest. I laid my hand against the painted block where the damp used to live, and it came back dry. The window over the workbench was clear at sunrise the next morning for the first time I could remember, and the meter on the side of the house, that little spinning disc that used to whir like a slot machine all summer, sat still, quiet. The cellar was drying itself the way that old man at the feed store said it would. Most of what goes wrong in a house isn't dramatic. It's slow. Slow rot, slow rust, slow mold under the windowsill that you've been wiping away for years without ever asking where the water came from. The old answers handled slow problems with slow, patient tools. A bucket in a corner, checked once a month, revived once a season. That cadence is the homestead mind, and you already have it in you, or you wouldn't have made it this far down the page. You're the same kind of person who keeps a jar of bacon grease by the stove and a coffee can of bent nails on the workbench. Nothing wasted. Nothing rented. Nothing plugged in that doesn't need to be. Here's your weekend, if you want it. Saturday morning, walk your house and trust knows more than any meter. The dampest room will tell on itself before you reach the doorway. Saturday afternoon, drive to the hardware store or the feed store and buy a small bag of calcium chloride pellets or a pound of silica gel for the gentler rooms. Saturday evening, build the bucket on the workbench. 5-gallon colander holes pellets. Set in the corner before bed. Check it next Sunday. That's it. No subscription, no installer, no app. A weekend and $4. And a problem your house has had since the day it was built starts quietly fixing itself. Now, I want to hear from you because the comments are where the real wisdom on this channel lives. Tell me about the dampest room you ever slept in, your grandmother's cellar with the canning jars on wooden shelves, a barracks bunk in a coastal town, a fishing cabin in October when the lake fog rolled up under the eaves. What did it smell like? And what did the old folks do about it before there was a plug in the wall? I read them, I learn from them. And next time we sit down, I'll tell you about the cup of something white that lives behind the wood stove all winter, the one that keeps a whole house from cracking and splitting in the dry months. The opposite trouble, the same kind of answer. Until then, keep an honest house, the rest takes care of itself.